It was just past midnight when Elijah Monroe, 53, zipped up his coat and stepped out of the Washington, D.C. FBI headquarters. The cool spring air bit at his skin, but he didn't mind. He'd been working for 16 hours straight, reviewing intelligence briefs, coordinating with foreign agencies, and speaking directly with the president. That kind of pressure could crush a man, but Elijah wore it like a second skin. There was a calmness about him. Always had been. The world knew Elijah as the first black director of the FBI, a quiet titan in a system that wasn't built for men like him. But on the street, under a flickering lamppost and dressed in a plain hoodie and jeans, no one knew his name. And that anonymity was both armor and target. He decided to walk home that night. It was only 14 blocks, a ritual he'd adopted when needing time to think. The streets were mostly empty. The city slumbered, but that calm would soon be shattered. He was crossing 12th Street when the flash of red and blue lights painted the pavement in chaos. A loud voice thundered through a police speaker. "Stop right there. Hands in the air." Elijah stopped, startled, raising his hands slowly. He turned his head. A police cruiser screeched to a stop. 2 officers stepped out. One approached aggressively, hand already on his holstered weapon. "What are you doing out here this late?" The younger cop barked, white, shaved head, maybe 30s. "What's in your pockets?" Elijah remained calm. "Just walking home. I work nearby." "Don't get smart. Hands on the hood, now." The officer's voice had that razor-edge tension, the kind born of assumption, not reason. Elijah, despite being one of the most powerful men in law enforcement, followed instructions. He had nothing to prove, and yet everything to lose. The older cop hung back, silent, a passenger in the moment. You matched the description of a suspect. The younger one continued, starting to search Elijah. Dark skin, hoodie, wandering around, suspicious behavior. Elijah replied, measured, "Is walking home from work now a crime?" That answer was met with a sudden shove. The cuffs clicked shut. The younger cop, Officer Brandon Keene, was known around the precinct for his firm hand with street activity. That was code, of course. He'd been investigated twice for excessive force. Both dismissed quietly. He was a kind of officer who believed a badge made him king, not servant. Keene dragged Elijah to the cruiser. "Got ourselves a runner." "Huh? You got ID? Or did you forget it like the rest?" Elijah's wallet was still in his coat. Keene yanked it out, rifled through, found the FBI badge. He froze, then laughed. "Nice toy. Where'd you get this?" "eBay." Elijah said nothing. They drove toward the local precinct. Keene strutted, proud of his collar. But something about Elijah's silence began to unsettle him. Most men begged, pleaded. Not this one. He sat in the back of the cruiser, like a man with a secret. Keene dismissed it. His authority was unquestioned. Or so he thought. At the precinct, Elijah was processed, fingerprinted, photographed, still cuffed. But one desk sergeant, Angela Ruiz, noticed a name. She blinked. "Monroe? Elijah Monroe." He nodded once. She stood slowly. "Sir, you're Director Monroe," he replied quietly. "Yes." Gasps. Silence. The room shifted from chaos to paralyzing stillness. Angela grabbed her radio, frantic. "We've made a mistake. Huge mistake. Cancel everything." Keene looked pale. "Wait, what? What the hell is happening?" Angela turned to him, eyes burning. "You just arrested the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation." Keene's mouth opened, but no words came out. Elijah stood slowly. The handcuffs still clung to his wrists like a symbol, but he said calmly, "Take them off." Elijah didn't scream. He didn't raise his voice. That would have been easy, expected, even. Instead, he looked at Keene with centuries of pain behind his eyes. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about who you thought I was. About who you never thought I could be." The silence was deafening. "You didn't ask for ID. You didn't de-escalate. You saw my skin and assumed criminality." The chief of police arrived minutes later, apologetic, embarrassed. But Elijah wasn't after apologies. He requested a full report of the arrest. Names, badge numbers, body cam footage, everything. And then he left, quietly. The next morning, Washington exploded. News outlets got wind. FBI director wrongfully arrested by racist cop trended worldwide. Politicians called for accountability. Citizens protested in solidarity. Officer Keene was suspended, pending federal investigation. But Elijah wasn't done. He issued a national statement, not about vengeance, but vision. I wasn't arrested as a director of the FBI. I was arrested as a black man, and that should scare all of us. He launched a full-scale internal DOJ review of racial bias in policing, new training programs, independent watchdog panels, a hotline for wrongfully profiled citizens. He didn't just get even, he changed the game. Weeks later, Elijah walked the same route home. Same hoodie, same jeans. But this time, he wasn't alone. Citizens, reporters, pastors, lawyers, even police officers, all walked with him. And on that night, under the same flickering lamppost, no one saw a suspect. They saw a man who rewrote the story. It had been 3 weeks since the nation watched the body cam footage of Officer Keene wrongfully cuffing Elijah Monroe, a man whose dignity under duress left the public in awe. While the White House publicly backed Elijah's reforms, there was unrest in the police unions. Behind closed doors, officers across the country whispered, "So now we gotta check ID before doing our job?" What if he wasn't the FBI director? Would anyone care? Elijah knew the ugliness wasn't over. He'd exposed a nerve in the American system, and someone now defending the rot rather than cleaning it. Officer Keene was advised by his union rep to keep quiet, but a right-wing podcast offered him a sympathetic platform. On air, Keene said, "How was I supposed to know he was someone important? He looked like any other suspect out here late at night. We were following protocol." The host chimed in, "You're being canceled for doing your job." It spread like wildfire, but what the public didn't know was that Keene had a record. Elijah had authorized a deeper investigation into past complaints against Keene, 2 of which involved unarmed black teens assaulted during stops. Body cam footage had mysteriously gone missing both times. That wouldn't happen this time. Under public pressure, a federal review board summoned Officer Keene for a misconduct hearing. The room was packed with journalists, legal observers, civil rights lawyers, and Elijah himself, seated in the front row, not as a director, but as a citizen. Keene's defense claimed, *, no racial intent, *, reasonable suspicion due to time and location, *, he matched a vague description. Elijah's legal team countered with, *GPS and timestamp evidence, showing Elijah was never near any reported crime. The body cam recording showing Elijah fully cooperating and Keene escalating without cause. The pattern of prior abuses by the same officer. Then came the moment that changed everything. A young woman named Nia Holloway, 19, testified. She was one of Keene's previous victims. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were on fire. "He slammed me against a car for walking home from choir rehearsal. Said I was snooping around. My only crime was being black in my own neighborhood." The room fell into silence. Keene's expression cracked. After 6 hours of deliberation, the panel returned with its findings. Officer Brandon Keene is hereby found guilty of racial profiling, misuse of authority, and conduct unbecoming of law enforcement. Effective immediately, his badge and license are revoked. He is barred from reapplying to any law enforcement agency in the United States. The room erupted, not with cheers, but with relief. Elijah closed his eyes. It wasn't revenge. It was vindication. Later that night, Elijah walked a familiar route home again, alone this time. As he neared his block, a car pulled up slowly beside him. It was Angela Ruiz, the desk sergeant who had recognized him that night. "Director Monroe, I just want to say thank you. I've been in law enforcement 22 years. I thought I'd seen it all. But what you did, that changed the conversation." Elijah smiled softly. "We didn't just change the conversation, Angela. We changed the rules." 3 months later, Elijah received a letter, handwritten, neat block lettering. It was from a young white officer in Alabama. "Sir, I watched the footage of your arrest and your hearing. I used to think these things were exaggerated. that people were just angry for no reason. But your silence that night said more than any protest ever could. I've been rethinking everything. Thank you for not yelling down. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Elijah kept that letter in his desk. It reminded him that change didn't always come with fire. Sometimes it came with stillness. Elijah's arrest led to real change. Over 117 departments adopted the Monroe Protocol, mandatory bias de-escalation training, including footage of Elijah's encounter. The Department of Justice launched a national registry for officers with repeat civil rights violations. Victims like Nia Holloway were granted legal aid through a new program, Walk Free, funded by Elijah's own private contributions. And for the first time, America had a policing oversight tool named after a black man, not because he was a victim, but because he was a victor. On the anniversary of his arrest, Elijah returned to the same street. But this time, he wasn't just walking home. He was joined by thousands, people of every race, every background, every faith. They walked in silence for the first mile. Then applause broke out, not for a man, but for a movement. Because when the man who leads the FBI is cuffed for walking while black and still respond with dignity, that's not just a mistake that exposes a flaw. That's a mirror. And Elijah made sure America never looked away from it again.